What is good, Ghost Mafians? Welcome back to the Real Talk Podcast with your host, Mr. Ghost, where we bring the truth and the facts to the table, shining that light upon the darkness, guys, because as good Christians, that's our duty, to be the light bearers of this world. Where evil hides in the darkness, we shine light upon it and reveal the truth. Well, guys, you got to listen to this one. We got some breaking news that's just dropped a short while ago, and this one is really going to shake up our political world to its core. For far too long, people in authority position, people, within a political position in our government, has been getting away with a lot of corruption and sweeping it under the rug. Well, former FBI Director James Comey has officially been indicted. Yeah, you kind of heard that right. You know what I'm saying? James Comey, that one. The same man that was the center of the Clinton email investigation, the Russia probe. Remember that, right? And all those messy headlines over the last decade, he's been the big key figure. Well, now he's indicted, and this is huge. This isn't just about one man. This is about accountability, corruption, and whether or not the so-called untouchables in Washington are finally to start to face real consequences for their actions. So today we are diving into what exactly Comey has been indicted for. We're going to dive into how this impacts the FBI and our justice system as a whole. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to look into, of course, what this means for you, the American people, who've been watching corruption that's been swept under the rug for far too long. Ghost Mafia, I need you to stay with me on this one, please. Just stay with me, because this is history in the making. It's not every day that somebody at the top of the FBI, America's law enforcement, the top sheriff per se of law enforcement, okay, is now facing charges. He's a former FBI director, let me clarify that, but he is facing some major charges. This is the type of story that the mainstream media will twist and try to downplay, try to spin it to protect their own, right? You know how the left is. They're going to try to twist it. This is Trump trying to hunt down those who are going after him. Well, we all are very aware that the Russian hoax is really a hoax. It was all lies to try to thwart the election in 2016. And Comey has lied to Congress. He obstructed Congress. There are a lot of witnesses that are coming forward, basically throwing Comey under the bus, said, yes, he authorized the leak of this information. That's illegal, my friend. That's classified information. But here on the Real Talk, we're going to break it down raw and unfiltered. We're going to bring you straight truth. So grab your coffee, your notepad, and whatever you need, guys, because today we're exposing the truth behind James Comey's indictment. So let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so what exactly is he indicted for, ladies and gentlemen? Well, he's indicted on 2 counts. 2 big counts, by the way. Making a false statement to Congress. So for those who are not aware, if you make a false statement to Congress, under 18 U.S. Code 101, the false statement statute, which prohibits anyone from knowingly and willfully making a material false statement, concealing material fact, or using a false document in any matter with the jurisdiction or of the legislative branch. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but regardless, enacted by Congress, sees the full truthful. So obviously that's illegal, and his second charge that he is going to be facing, ladies and gentlemen, is a big one. All right, so basically, and also he's facing obstruction of congressional proceedings. So that's another one that's under 18 U.S. Code 1505 and 18 U.S. Code 1512. Under those, he is being indicted with. That is crazy. I really never thought this was going to go through. This is not Trump. A little side note. This is not Trump hunting down people that went after him. This is exposing the truth. Think about it for a second. How many bullshit charges? Sorry, God. I've been swearing a lot lately. God, please forgive me. It's probably my blood pressure, right? I don't know. But he's been facing a lot of battles. You know what I'm saying? Then the far left tried to whack him twice. They took out Charlie Kirk. They attacked the ICE facility. So we see this unraveling of our society from the far left. And they've been weaponizing the deep state for a very long time. But we are all well aware that something was fishy over these past 4 to to 8 years, right? Under his presidency the first time, and obviously under Biden, a lot of weird things has been happening. So the DOJ statement says that a false statement charge includes a claim that he made during a 2020 Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he did not authorize someone at the FBI to act as an anonymous source, which prosecutors allege was false. There is actually a witness that came forward and said, yes, he gave me the authorization. And we'll dive into that one within a second. The obstruction charge is tied to impeding, influencing, and corrupting, endeavoring to obstruct a congressional inquiry into the disclosure of sensitive information, classified information, ladies and gentlemen. You can't leak classified information. I think anybody with a pea-sized brain would know that, but obviously I think he's missing his. So obviously during his 2020 testimony, he just said, I had no clue. I didn't authorize nobody. That was a lie. So this is not about the broader, Russian probe in substance, but about what he said and didn't say to Congress. The timing is critical for this, guys, because prosecutors have to bring charges before the statute of limitations expired, 5 years, from when he allegedly made the false testimony. This case is brought by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia. This is controversy, obviously, over whether career prosecutors originally believed that there was probable cause and an internal pushback before the indictment was pushed through. So obviously there's been a lot of push back and forth. You know what I'm saying? Trying to figure out, well, should we indict this guy? Any of us would say yes. If he lied to Congress, he obstructed Congress. He was part of this conspiracy to thwart the American election in 2016. Obviously, bring charges. I think nobody is above the law. Comey said that himself. You know what I'm saying? Comey made it very clear that nobody's above the law, not even him himself. So he's going to face the repercussions of his actions. See, we could look into the possibilities of his defense angles. Comey team can likely argue that his testimony was truthful and that his statements was abstractious and misunderstood. They may argue that any discrepancy was not willfully or corrupt in intent, meaning a key battleground is intent. They also may challenge the sufficiency of the evidence. This part I'm going to find funny because he's literally caught on interview, pretty much admitting to the release of the information. So there's a lot of video evidence out there is going to be thrown at him. Also, he may invoke the separation of powers or congressional oversight arguments, inquiry of a political motive. It's just crazy, guys. So now, how does this impact our FBI? How does this impact the justice system as a whole? Well, for a very long time, we've been dealing with this politicalization of the justice system. We've seen it for the past 4 years, right? The past 4 years, we've seen time and time again where there was these prosecutions pushing these indictments against Trump, right? And every time he was winning, he wasn't winning because, he was paying people off or something like that. He was winning simply because he was bringing facts and truth to the table and proving his innocence. This was obviously politically motivated because they did not want him back in power. I'm a firm believer they don't like Trump because they can't buy Trump. And on top of that, not only can't they not buy Trump, Trump knows their secrets. And I think that scares them the most. See, this will also create an erosion within our trust of the FBI and the Justice Department, right? For far too long, our Justice Department has been very shaky at most. We've been having less and less trust over the years. And I do believe under this presidency, we're going to restore that trust within our Justice Department that no one is above the law. You break the law, you be accountable. We've seen this a lot in our society where, and once again, Democratic side of the things, you have a lot of Democrat-run cities where people are running lawlessness. There's lawlessness all over the place. Once again, we go back to the Ukrainian refugee. That right there should cement the argument that that person who murdered her, was released back to the streets. Makes no sense, right? This is going to create a lot of issues for a lot of Americans. There are a lot of questions we're going to have when it comes to this. Now, what does this mean for the American people, guys? Well, be honest, it's going to restore trust, right, into our justice system. It's going to it's going to restore our faith in the FBI that they could do their job, accountability and power checks. So if our system allows powerful figures to evade consequences, that weakens the rule of law, right? We'll have more lawlessness in our society. But if we're able to successfully prosecute this individual through a serious trial, this would signal that nobody really is above the law, including a former FBI director. Okay? Regardless of where you stand, even if you're in Congress, you're not above the law. You got to follow the laws. I will ask this question, this little side rant. Can we investigate several politicians on both sides of the aisle and their finances? You know, I'll start with Nancy Pelosi. $275 million. You're making 200,000+ a year, but yet you're worth a little over $250 million. Yeah, it makes you scratch your head, right? Then you look at $79 million for Schumer. We got to question why these politicians are becoming millionaires. Well, everyday Americans are struggling. That's just a little side rant. But also, guys, this brings a lot of transparency, a lot of truth. You know what I'm saying? This case will force the public scrutiny into high-level offices and how they behave and speak under oath. Because when you swear under oath that you're telling nothing but the truth, right? That you're being honest and willfully honest to the best of your ability. A successful prosecution has to happen, guys. I'm hoping it does. This will prompt questions on how statements are made and testimony are verified and challenged and enforced. Rights and freedoms are at stake here, guys, because understand, if the prosecution are selectively used to intimidate critics or political opponents, it could chill speech, dissent, and whistleblowing. I get that. But we also have to understand there is a broader use of federal law that's been targeting political adversaries to undermine civil liberties. We've seen it. How many of Trump's partners, people that worked with him, other politicians, have been indicted on multitude of different charges that were false? How many of these cases got thrown out? For far too long, our justice system has been politicalized. And I think we have to get rid of that. We have to rebuild trust in our institutions, right? See, people are already skeptical about our government, right? Let me know in the comments, how much do you trust the government, right? But as this evidence starts building, right? And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of evidence of the biasness, of the cover-ups and revenge politics, right? And you have to question, though, real quick, guys, another little side rant. Why do they want to silence Trump so much? I want you guys to use your brains for a second. Trump is just a billionaire that builds buildings and builds businesses. Very successful man. I mean, he said in the 80s he would run if the country desperately needed him. He was a Democrat. They were all friends with him. Whoopi Goldberg. I'll go down the long list of A-listers that were friends with Trump. Politicians loved Trump. But far too long, Trump has watched Washington, D.C. become more corrupt, more wealthy, and more evil. Is Trump a perfect man? No, 100%. Little side rant, he's not a perfect man. We could talk about that all day, how he has many faults. But you could see that God is making his work in him and changing him and using him for good. God has taken a person that has fallen so far in his personal life. You know what I'm saying? Divorces, some of his languages, obviously not proper, but God's using him for the greater good to expose the evil and the corruption in this country. See, to have a fair and transparent trial will help set guardrails on how testimony is handled, how prosecutors decide who to charge, and how checks and balances operate in our country. So we're going to dive into the original article. I cannot speak today, guys. Jeesh. So Lindsay Halligan, I like that name, Halligan, a U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, announced today that a federal grand jury returned an indictment charging former FBI Director James Comey with making false statements to Congress, as well as obstruction related to his oral testimony before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th, 2020. So obviously, 4 days before it expires. They nailed him. The charges as alleged in this case represents a breach of the public's trust at an extraordinary level, said U.S. Attorney Halligan. The balance of power is the bedrock principle of our democracy, and it relies upon accountability and forthright presentation of facts from the executive leadership to congressional oversight. Any attempt to avoid, evade, prevent, or obstruct compliance is a violation of professional responsibility and, most importantly, the law. But well spoken. If convicted, Comey can face up to 5 years in prison. Actual sentences for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. A federal district judge will determine any sentencing after consideration of the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. And obviously, they have a press release right here. But ladies and gentlemen, obviously, here's another one. Obviously, people are going hammer. James Comey is a dirty cop. Make America great again. Sometimes I do question that Trump, sometimes his wording kind of gets in the way of him. Like, it comes off snarky. Listen, I'm not bashing on Trump. I think Trump is doing a good job with this country, bringing back law and order, bringing back trust in the American establishment of our government. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes you just watch him and you're like, Trump, tone it down. I watched him at the Charlie Kirk memorial, and it's like he had a really good speech, but a few parts of it, I'm like, is anybody trying to will? I know it's hard to will the guy back, right? He's always been this way. His personality's always been vague. His whole life he's been like this. But it's like sometimes you just got to tone it down a little bit. But I think he's being truthful because, you know, James Comey is a dirty cop. We have evidence of him lying. So it's overwhelming, you know what I'm saying, that he actually lied to the American people, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to the Russian probe. And obviously when he was at the oversight committee and he did lie to the American people. So this is the judge that's going to oversee the case, people are saying. He is appointed by Biden. I think he should recuse himself. President Trump says James Comey is finished. There's no way to explain a way out of this. There isn't. So Trump posted this, I believe, on Truth Social. Whether you like corrupt James Comey or not, I can't imagine too many people liking him. He lied. It's a complex lie. It's very simple. Oh, it's not a complex lie. It's very simple, but important one. There is no way he can explain his way out of it. He's a dirty cop and always has been. But he has been assigned a crooked Joe Biden appointed judge, which I don't think the judge, I don't know the judge, so I'm not going to pass judgment on that, because I have no righteousness to do so. So it's off to a very good start. So he's off to a good start. Nevertheless, words are words, and he wasn't hedging or in dispute. He was very positive. There was no doubt in his mind about what he said and meant by saying it. It left him zero margin of error on a big and important answer to a question. He just got unexpectedly caught. James Dirty Cop Comey was a destroyer of lives. He knew exactly what he was saying, and that was very serious and far-reaching lie for which a very big price must be paid. And obviously people are just, posting repeatedly. And obviously, let's see what this crazy lady... I hope. Oh, zip it, lady. She's the biggest liar of all. I think she should be impeached from Congress. I don't understand how people elect their officials and get people like this. People like this are so just grimy.
I want the American people to know that when you stand up to a bully, you win. Do not back down. Do not bend. You allow them to go and wage their threats. If everybody starts to bend, for sure what is left of our democracy will be gone. And unfortunately, that is exactly what he wants. And even more sadly is that many of his followers agree with this. And I am thinking to myself, how is it that you can call yourself American or patriotic when you literally don't understand who we are as Americans, when you literally are okay with throwing out the Constitution, when you're okay with someone just deciding, you know what, this is the end result that I'm seeking, and so just figure out how to get there. I want the American people to know that when you stand up to a bully.
All right, guys, I honestly thought I lost some brain cells listening to that. I think I got even more dumber just listening to that rhetoric. That's all it really was. She had no coherent statement when it comes to this. But we're going to really dive deep into the false statement to Congress first, and we'll go to the obstruction part, because it is very clear that he broke the law. Okay? I don't know why Democrats love criminals. Why do they love the illegals? Why don't they choose the American people? I know my value. I know where my ancestors come from. I know who died for this country. I have a lot of friends that I've lost for this country. I have a lot of family members that were lost for this country. This bracelet I'm currently wearing, this metal one, is for my uncle Arthur, who died there in Vietnam. We have a very beautiful country, but so much corruption's been happening for far too long. So let's dive into the false statement, right? The first charge that he's being hit with stems from a Comey's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th in 2020 about the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane, an investigation into the Russian interference in the 2016 election. The indictment alleges that Comey lied under oath when he denied authorizing an anonymous leak of information to the media. Guys, you can't leak classified information, dummy. Like, he has a law degree. He's been in this business long enough to know not to leak any information, but he authorizes it. So the false statement charge is based on the specific points. A reporter's contact during the 2020 hearing, Senator Cruz asked Comey about his earlier 2017 testimony where he denied being an anonymous source or authorizing anyone else to be one. Well, there's a conflicting account to this, because according to the 2018 Justice Department Inspector General's report, Comey's former deputy, Andrew McCabe, claimed that Comey had authorized him to leak information to a reporter. The indictment, the prosecutors are alleging that Comey knew and in fact had authorized an unnamed contact to act as an anonymous source to make his testimony false. So right there, he got caught with his pants down. You can't talk your way out of this. You really can't. Okay? Now, when we talk about the obstruction of justice charges, right, we look about those, the obstruction of congressional proceedings. The second charge accuses Comey of corruptly endeavoring to influence or obstruct the Senate's investigation. Though his false and misleading statements, this charge is related to his overall testimony during the 2020 hearing. The indictment has prompted significant debate regarding political interference in the justice system. Trump's obviously been pushing pressure on his Justice Department for these indictments because, well, Trump wants answers. And so do we American people. For far too long, we've been watching corruption just get swept under the rug, completely ignored. Comey's own words, nobody's above the law. Remember those? He's not either. So obviously, the Attorney General that is going to prosecute Comey is going to bring true justice for the American people. Now, Comey did respond to this. He obviously denies all charges, stating that he is innocent and welcomes the opportunity to clear his name in court. In a public video, he said, "I have great confidence in the federal judicial system." Well, because most of it's liberal now, so obviously you do. "And I am innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith." Obviously, the statute of limitations is up in 4 days. So let's look into the allegations that really triggered the investigations. This is what people call the Russian hoax. And we'll actually breeze through this and we'll watch the quick clip from when he lied to Congress, or we might just skip that. We'll see. But this is pretty crazy so far. Multiple events and intelligent reports prompted an official inquiry into the Russian election interference and potential links to the Trump campaign. Hacking and leaks. Russian military intelligence, which is the GRU, hacked into servers of the Democratic National Committee and stole thousands of internal emails. Their stolen materials were publicly released via WikiLeaks. Remember that, WikiLeaks? and online personas like Jucifer 2.0, time to maximize political damage to Hillary Clinton's campaign, social media campaign, Russia's Internet Research Agency, the IRA, a state-sponsored troll farm, created and spread a large-scale disinformation campaign on social media to inflame political division and help Trump win. Contacts with the Russian nationals. Various members of the Trump campaign were found to have contact with the Russian nationals during the campaign and presidential transaction, including the June 2016 meeting at Trump Tower, where Donald Trump Jr. accepted a Russia offer of dirt on Hillary Clinton. That was proven to be false. Remember, these are just the allegations that triggered a further investigation. These are proven to be false. Finding of the official investigations, multiple extensive investigations concluded that the Russian interference interfered in the election, though they had different findings regarding criminal conspiracy. We had the Mueller investigation. You guys remember that one? The 2019 report by special counsel Robert Mueller detailed Russia's sweeping and systematic effort to influence the election. It did not find significant evidence to establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian government. However, it was explicitly stated that it did not exonerate Trump on potential obstruction of justice. Eventually that does. Senate Intelligence Committee report, a bipartisan 2020 Senate report, affirmed the intelligence community findings that the Russian government engaged in an aggressive multi-fascist effort to influence the election in Trump's favor. Once again, Trump had nothing to do with it. We've dealt with this a lot when other countries are trying to interfere with our way of life. TikTok is a big form of that. Owned by the Chinese government, they have a big say over it. And we've watched our society spiral downhill because TikTok is everybody's favorite go-to for their news source. And most people on TikTok, they're not reliable for credible news source. Okay? So recent counterclaims. Following Trump's return to office in 2025, his administration has sought to delegitimize the official conclusion. Oh, they found a lot of information, guys, by the way. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and former CIA Director John Ratcliffe have been involved in declassifying and releasing documents to bolster claims that the intelligence community's assessment was politicalized. Crazy, right? And obviously, we're going to look at the Durham report. This is another very important one. The 2023 Durham report, which was intended to investigate the origins of the FBI's investigation, concluded that the FBI failed to follow its own procedures, but also failed to establish the invented origin of the hoax, which was celebrated by those who promoted the conspiracy theory. Continue relevance. The debate over the legitimacy of the Russian interference claims remains a diverse issue in American politics today, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, bear with me. We are rocking through this. This is a lot to take in. Obviously, we're a little over like 20, 28 minutes into this. He lied to the American people. We already know that Russia really never met with Trump. Trump was never working with the Russians to steal the election in 2016. We just didn't want Hillary Clinton. A lot of Americans didn't. We already had the 8 years of Clintons and Monica Lewinsky, anybody? Just saying, we don't want that. Trump won fair and square. I could talk all night, and we're not going to dive into the video. It's an 8-minute video. I'm not going to waste your time on that. But we could talk about it all night. That they don't want Trump in power because Trump knows their secrets. Trump knows how the elite works. He knows of the corruption in Washington. He knows who the dirty people are. That's why they tried to kill him in June of last year. That's why they tried again within his golf course. Because Trump knows too much. Because Trump will at some point drain the swamp. And I think we have to. I think we have to investigate why these politicians are millionaires. We have to investigate those who think they're above the law and they're breaking the law. You can't lie to Congress. You can't obstruct what they're trying to do. You're interfering with our exercise of separation of powers. You know what I'm saying? And you're sitting there interfering and completely trying to railroad an investigation into the truth whether Russia truly interfered with our election. And trust me, every American, myself included, wants to know that. Because would you want to know if another country interfered with the election? I mean, Hillary Clinton deleted over 30,000+ emails. They're on a private server inside her private residence. So let's not get started on this for that. Because at the end of the day, the Democrats have a lot of egg on their face. And also they have a lot of blood on their hands. And I'm proud of Trump and his administration standing up for the American people and letting the American people know that nobody's above the law. Not even a former director of the FBI. Now, we could argue all day whether if Trump is doing this as a personal vendetta. We really don't know, myself included. I'm not going to speculate he is. Because when I look at the facts and I look at everything that lays right in front of me, right? I know for a fact James Comey is guilty. I know for a fact that James Comey lied to the American people. McCabe told us under oath that he was authorized by the director himself to release classified information which violates our law. Then he went into Congress and lied repeatedly. And he has no regrets, no remorse. So, Mr. Comey, you're not above the law. Nobody is. And listen, I don't care if it's the right or the left. You break the law, you go to jail. And I'm proud of our president trying to clean up our streets. We got too many people in power that are passing rhetoric of hatred towards the right, towards the FBI, towards all of those who are trying to make this country better, against ICE, against anybody that speaks out against the evil. They're coming for us. And this isn't us trying to make things up or being hyperbolic about it. This is us being real. We're being real about this. They're hunting us down because they do not want the light to shine into the darkness of this country. When enough is enough? When is Americans going to truly open their eyes and realize they've been bamboozled? I said that correctly. Correct me in the comments. Far too long, we've been played against one another. We've been playing this identity politics shit for way too long. A man's a man, a woman's a woman. Mental health is mental health. And we got to start helping people in this country and start realizing there are laws in this country and we need law and order. And I believe that this president and his administration will restore God back into this country and God's principles in this country and start cracking down on the corruption in Washington. And yes, I'm calling for an investigation to any Congress member that is worth over $1 million. Because we really got to question, either you're a really good investor or there's some illegal shady business going on. I can't speculate. I'm not going to get into the gossip of it because I don't have facts in front of me. But just something smells off. I'm not wrong, am I? Appreciate you guys so much. I really do. This is your host, Mr. Ghost. I appreciate every one of you guys. God bless you guys. Listen, you guys are awesome. You guys are beautiful. I love you all. Don't forget to subscribe, bell notification, hit that like button, and I'm going to catch you all in the next podcast. Have a good night, y'all.